Okay, see, these are my reviewer glasses. So recently I decided that I wanted to watch Clint Eastwood's newest film, Cry Macho, which is a neo-western that calls back to Clint Eastwood's earlier projects such as Fistful of Dollars, Pale Rider, and Two Mules for Sister Sarah. It's been a while since Clint Eastwood has actually done a western and moreover direct a western, so I was pretty excited as a lifelong Clint Eastwood fan. Clint Eastwood's career can only be described as a long stream of excellency, whether it be his iconic performance as the Man with No Name in Sergio Leone's Dollar Trilogy, or his masterful direction in films like Unforgiven. Recently, however, Eastwood's career has been on some thin ice. Though his legacy is never forgotten, Eastwood's newest films have been under scrutiny. Many critique his disjointed and buggy performances in films like Trouble with the Curve and The Mule. Others have criticized his style of directing before in films like Sully. However, nothing can distract from Eastwood's previous outings that solidified him as a blockbuster legend. I can't really discuss the film without discussing what it's about, so I'll just go through a quick summary. Cry Macho takes place in 1980 Texas and Mexico. It follows Mike Milo, played by Clint Eastwood, a former rodeo star that had to retire due to a significant back injury that has made him a shadow of what he once was. After being called back by his former boss, Howard Polk, Milo is assigned a new quest. Polk wants him to drive to Mexico and recover his long-lost son Raffo, in which he claims that he's being abused by his mother. Milo reluctantly agrees and finds Raffo working for crime lords, in which he spectates cage matches between animals. After some quarreling, Milo makes it his mission to drive Raffo back to Texas for a potentially better life. With Clint Eastwood's newer direction style, there's also a fair amount of dumb or just plain silly scenes. Raffo has a pet chicken named Macho who, at one point, saves the duo from a firearm confrontation, which I feel like that's just a stroke above fiction, especially in a story that's supposed to be realistic. Raffo's mother, Lita, who Howard said was abusing Raffo, is so comically evil that it's almost embarrassing, to be honest. Like, Lita doesn't even really feel like a character. She just kind of feels like a tool that's meant to push the plot forward, but doesn't really feel organic. Even with these dumb moments, for what it's worth, Cry Macho does have a lot of its moments. There's great cinematography in the form of several gorgeous landscapes and dolly shots. There's a beautiful scene where Milo rests beneath a sunset, representing how his age is slowly getting the best of him. There's several moments where Milo and Raph just talk about the strengths and detriments of life, and those scenes are often complemented with good cinematography. I feel like, technical-wise, Cry Macho really scores well with cinematography. Everything else is just standard film stuff, but I actually really like the cinematography here. When I first heard this plot, I actually really liked it because I liked the idea of Clint Eastwood playing the more mentor-like character that has to teach a younger generation. We saw that kind of in Gran Torino, but I feel like in this neo-western format, it could potentially bring in a lot of interesting scenarios and be fun to watch. It's hard to determine whether Cry Macho is a stroke of genius or lunacy. On one hand, there's a refreshing amount of new ideas and concepts that can be interpreted in several different ways, but on the other, it's tough to say if these concepts are even intentional. Some will claim that the ending of this film completely contradicts everything the story has built up to that point. In a sense, that claim seems agreeable. However, the ending of Cry Macho offers the possibility of so much more of what is given. There is a pretty cool film technique used in films like It's Such a Beautiful Day, where sometimes the film will present with you false events that are interpretable and relate back to themes that the film shares. So in Cry Macho, I'm gonna try not to spoil it, but Milo and Raffo kind of take a complete 180 of their goal after the whole firearm confrontation I was talking about with Raffo's chicken. And a part of me kind of feels like the whole 180 bit was kind of intentional. You know, like Milo and Raffo are very, set on this goal that they have, but then they just do a complete 180. And I feel like what the film is trying to do is present false events to kind of convey a sort of theme of like, oh, it's kind of sort of like a dream sequence. The last scene in particular, I feel like really solidifies this. If you watch the film, you know what I mean. But in the last scene, Milo is sort of under this like trance of like things that he loves, all being culminated into one. And I feel like it isn't real. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a part of me feels as if this is intentionally trying to mislead the audience. Like I said, this is either a stroke of genius or just a pure stroke of lunacy. Keep in mind, Clint Eastwood is 91 years old, so it's kind of hard to say if any of this is really intentional or not. Maybe I'm giving Cry Macho too much credit, assuming that all this is supposed to be like actually seriously like the plot is very set in stone, no sort of interpretable, any sort of plot interpretation. It kind of sucks. Like, it feels so disjointed in how it wants to convey its themes, and characters will often just pop in and out of existence for a very short space, only to be important in other scenes. In some parts, it feels like Cry Macho doesn't really know what it wants to do. And I feel like that's sort of expected coming from someone as old as Clint Eastwood, but at the same time, I kind of wanted him to take advantage of the strong premise that Cry Macho presents. Clint Eastwood still delivers a fun and wholesome experience, even if the journey can be tainted with some really silly characters or sequences. The fundamental issue of Cry Macho is solely how underdeveloped its concepts are. For example, building the relationship between Rafa and Milo, which I feel like is sort of the main point of this film, and sometimes I feel like they gloss over that with introducing new characters and new settings. And like I said, the ending, which is also something I talked about earlier. At the end of the day, there's simply too much holding it down. I'm thinking a 5 out of 10 on this one. So yeah, Cry Macho, mid.